What's going on? This is the Saturday Down South podcast. I am Connor O'Gara. Will, I'm back. Back, baby.
Yeah.
First day.
It's been a journey, bro. It's been weird. You can already tell I'm off rhythm because this was such a big part of our life, just recording and everything. It's great to see you, bro.
Good to see you, man. Good to see you. So for those who are kind of like, wait, what are you guys talking about? You've had weekly pods coming out. Have not recorded any of those live. Recorded all of those ahead of time. Hopefully you enjoyed the evergreen pods that we've done the last 3 episodes. And if you've been wondering, why have you guys been doing any sort of reaction to schedule, stuff like that? Back from paternity leave. If you hear a crying baby in the background, apologies. But yeah, life is good. Life is different. I'm going to kind of provide more details on that if you're listening to this and thinking, I don't really care about how drastically your life changed. I'm not going to spend 20 minutes talking about it at the top. We'll talk about that at the end in lieu of figuring out and kind of update everybody on what my life has been like these last 3 weeks. It's been absolutely nuts. We also got Jacob Hester coming on in a bit, talked about a bit of everything. Hester's the best. So first, of course, all this is coming out as I'm on paternity leave, and I'm trying not to spend time on Twitter or anything like that. But think about this, and this is how long it's been. This is as long as I've gone in my life since I got into this field without podcasting, writing, anything like that. Mm-hmm. But the last time we recorded, which would have been end of May, I was still under the impression that the SEC would have a 9-game schedule starting in 2024. It's been a minute. Mm-hmm. I told everybody, hey, look, all these reasons why the SEC has always tried to line this up with the playoff. It's always been about the path to the playoff. Now that we got the 12-team playoff coming in 2024, the SEC is finally going to make that jump to 9 games. We know the margin for error is a little bit different now. It makes all the sense in the world. And then don't you know it, that doesn't happen at all. Everybody knows by now, listening to this, the late push to have another year at an 8-game conference schedule with Texas and Oklahoma coming on board, even though there is going to be the 12-team playoff, the SEC staying at the 8-game conference schedule. Everybody knows that. Saw a lot of different things going around. Not going to be able to get to all of it, but a lot of people criticizing the SEC, I think fairly so, sharing their frustration that this is going to be the case for another year when it felt imminent that we were going to get the 9-game conference schedule. What I didn't see, correct me if I'm wrong here, did you see a lot of people talking about this, why the stalemate exists between ESPN and the SEC from ESPN side? What did you see people talking about the holdup for ESPN?
No, just a lot of people screaming at the SEC, really.
Yeah, which makes sense. The SEC is hey, we want more money from ESPN if we're giving you a better package with the 9-game conference schedule. And ESPN essentially says, no, we're going to stand pat right here. We don't have to give you more money. What not enough people are talking about, though, is that dynamic and why some might look at the situation and say, well, they should just do right by their client. ESPN should do right by the SEC. Just give them more money, incentivize it, make it happen. My belief is that ESPN is saying, you guys are going to watch SEC games no matter what. It doesn't matter if it's against Louisiana Monroe or Auburn. Y'all are going to watch. And we know that you're going to watch. We don't have to come up with this crazy deal at the last minute to make you happy and throw more money at you when there's already this arrangement in place, because this isn't a bidding war. They have those rights. The contract is for 10 years. And so you've got...
And unlike other conferences, they be reading their contracts in the SEC, so they can't just throw out the UF-FSU game, the SEC championship game, the Super Bowl. They're not trying to roll all that into one deal here at the SEC like the Big Ten did.
Wait, I was going to ask, Will, who could you possibly be speaking of when it comes to media negotiations going wrong? Oh, you've never seen that happen before.
CEO of the Chicago Bears, the very own, your man, Kevin Moore.
Don't do that to me. Don't do that.
Welcome back.
Yeah. You've got teams in the SEC who said, let's just stick with 8 for another year and see if we can get more money. 9 teams in the SEC, as we find out, that we're ultimately saying that. And I saw a lot of people treating this like the SEC just signed a 20-year contract for the 8-game conference schedule. And that's not the case. It's just 2024. If they were really, really dead set on this 8-game conference schedule continuing into the latter part of the 2020s, they would have that deal locked in place, and they'd be like, you know what? We didn't get what we wanted from ESPN. Let's just pull the trigger and oh well, people forget about it. It's a 1-year deal for now, and you could probably get away with it because the ACC is doing that, and also the fact that you're adding Texas and Oklahoma. Everyone with half a brain understands the SEC is still the premier conference in America. I'm not breaking news by saying any of this, but does this kind of suck? Yeah, in some ways, for sure. And I'll be honest, I was bummed, and I want to see more SEC games, not less. I say that as someone who has so often talked about how lopsided it has been with the playoff success of teams who play the 8-game conference schedule versus teams who play the 9-game conference schedule. And if you don't know what the numbers are, I have them in an article that I wrote last year, and I realized I didn't put them in the doc today. But just trust me when I say they're incredibly lopsided. Okay, They are. That'll look different in the 12-team playoff era. I'm assuming it's going to look different, but I actually don't think that this is like what it once was. That is designed to create the best path to the playoff, with that being the sole focus. The SEC is trying to compensate these schools who could go from being bowl eligible to being like 5 and 7, with obviously a tougher conference that could, in theory, add an extra conference game. But remember, ESPN has the SEC for 10 years. Has that deal. You can renegotiate media deals, but again, Will, the Big Ten kind of showed us that's not always exactly an easy thing, and it can get really murky in a hurry, especially if you don't have great leadership at the top and if your commissioner is a bit incompetent. I wouldn't call Greg Sankey incompetent for not being able to get the SEC to a 9-game conference schedule, but do I think it's a rare demerit for Greg Sankey? Yeah, I do. I really do. The SEC was scrambling, and they went back and forth on this for a long time, and it's probably not the best look that Sankey had, the Saban leak, what was that, a few months ago with Alabama, talking with the Alabama permanent opponents with the 3-6-6 model. Saban wasn't happy. Saw a lot of people reacting to that as well and saying that Alabama is running scared, even though I disagree with that. I think Saban, even though it's a tough look, tough pill to swallow if you're going to be the team that plays anybody, anytime, anywhere, I think Saban has every right to be able to voice some frustration about that and say, like, okay, now's the time to do it. Not when you're already locked in, not when you already have these permanent opponents, because Saban didn't like the fact that Tennessee was being graded on a 10-year curve instead of what it just did this last year and what we ultimately think it can become with Josh Heupel. So, yeah, we know.
So Tennessee officially back, according to Nick Saban. Tennessee of old, gone. Only the Tennessee of now is here to stay.
The best compliment Tennessee's been given in the past 2 decades came from Nick Saban having resistance to this.
Intentionally, he was just like, actually, Tennessee might be here to stay. Like, as a Tennessee fan, I'd be like, amazing. Thank you for saying we won't be a doormat for 10 years. Love you, Nick.
It's a very fascinating sliding doors. If Tennessee had just been 7-5, 8-4 last year, lost to Alabama again, would we have had that resistance from Alabama with the 3-6-6 model? Would we perhaps be looking at a different conversation? Because we know that Saban has a lot of power, a very heavy voice in this conference. Could that have changed the course of the conference schedule with 2024? We'll never know. But the 8-game conference schedule deserved to kind of get blasted. And then, of course, we did what we always do. We turned the page. And immediately when the schedule gets announced last week, everybody's like, let's go. This is awesome. We love a football schedule announcement. It has become such a big deal in a way that it wasn't even as recently as 10 years ago, even as recently as 5 or 6 years ago. That's the NFL, that's college. We love hearing about that because the offseason is so long. And what do we want to do? We're sitting here in June talking about football. Nothing moves the needle like being able to map out those things. And I think that is why we all of a sudden were like, oh, 8-game conference schedule? Yeah, that's in the past. Let's break down what we think everybody's record is going to be in 2024. It's crazy. I mean, that is how quickly we forget about these things. Let's rank the SEC schedules from easiest to toughest.
Wait, really quick. I just want to say our last thing that we talked about literally right before you left was like, get ready for 9 games. Get mentally prepared for your team losing. Like that was our big thing. Is like everything's going to be different. Losses are going to be as big of a deal. I don't know if you saw this from at Reddit CFB on Twitter, but the new with the 8-game model, there are 20 combinations of 3 teams that can go undefeated with the new model, and it looks like 8 combinations of 4 teams that could all go undefeated. So maybe don't get used to losing. Maybe one more year of if you lose, it's a big deal because it's very possible to go undefeated.
That would be the reverse 2007, right?
Right, just everyone wins out. It's like,
I just need I need undefeated teams getting left out of the SEC championship. What a ride that would be to be able to see that. Okay, so let's rank the SEC schedules for 2024 from easiest to toughest. Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, LSU, Mississippi State, Mizzou, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Vandy. I just listed the SEC teams in alphabetical order. I didn't actually come up with the strength of schedule. Did you pick up on that?
Yeah, once you got through a couple, I was like, wait a minute.
Okay, yeah, we're not doing that today. I do think that there were a couple of consensus thoughts looking at this, and not to overreact too much, but that's what we're going to do. Florida fans, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. I think if you polled SEC fans, they would tell you, yes, Florida got the toughest draw for 2024. But here's the good news. I can't imagine at this time next year we're looking at that schedule thinking that it's even more challenging than the way that we're looking at it right now. And the good news for Florida is, unlike Auburn, Tennessee, at least you don't have both Georgia and Alabama on your schedule. Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad. Home games for Florida against Kentucky, LSU, Ole Miss, and A&M. You have road games at Mississippi State, Tennessee, and Texas. Obviously, the Georgia game in Jacksonville. And because Scott Strickland was so proactive in beefing up that non-conference slate, and also not just that, but saying, hey, UCF, we're finally going to play you. You've got Miami at home. You've got UCF at home. And then, oh, by the way, you're at Florida State. You can't even sleep
your
on
state
Stanford.
Championship that they always talk about is literally decided by, I guess, November 30th here, because all the dates are on here for the out of conference. So your team could still be like obviously that's not mid-season necessarily, but like you have seen all of, like, you've played all of the teams without a bowl game. Because that's the big thing about like Florida in the 90s. It was like, okay, well, you got, like you had to kind of, all these teams had to get to this level to play each other, really. Now it's built in. So it's like you could get punched in the mouth early against Miami on August 31st and then become a completely different team and have like a 30-point loss to Miami. Obviously, that's not likely with the way that Miami's, but you never know. It's 2 years from now, obviously. But it's just looking at all this, it's like, wow. Like, that's, never mind, Florida. I'm sorry. It is tough that you guys got to do this in this specific year.
If Florida goes 6-6 this year, everybody's going to look at that schedule and just say, Billy Napier, Scott Strickland as well, dead men walking. That's what they're going to say. If Florida essentially just repeats what it did last year, that would be coming. But I'm just saying, crazier things have happened. Okay, crazier things have happened. The bad thing, and why this is really tough to kind of wrap your head around if you're a Florida fan, spinning this as a positive, is you're looking at your quarterback situation, and that's not the type of schedule you would want for a first-time starting quarterback. It's really not to have to navigate that, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, so if we don't have a first-time starting quarterback, it's either Graham Mertz or Jack Miller becoming a thing this year, and it kind of puts
and they got that kid Simmons, right? So he might play.
Oh, well, they don't. They don't.
I couldn't even hold that joke together. I'm sorry.
I had to. Do you know how many? So when you're away from stuff, and you're not locked in, I wasn't locked in to Twitter every day during paternity leave. Right. If we're going to explain what exactly Will's talking about, if you did not see what happened with Austin Simmons, but when you see a headline like 4-star quarterback reclassifies from 2025 class, flips and joins 2023 class, you think to yourself, surely this is just my sleep deprivation talking.
Right.
This can't be real. Did I dream that I saw that a kid finished his sophomore year of high school and then flipped to another school in the SEC? Did I dream that his dad told the Palm Beach Post, oh, yeah, we're actually looking at Florida's situation. DJ Lagway's coming in. We think they really like him. The schedule is too difficult. What are we doing? I still can't fully wrap my head around that.
I'm so stupid. I was looking at his GPA. It said it was like 5.25, and I was just staring at it like, what? Do I understand what the number 5 is in this case? Like, the number 5, am I aware? Like, I was doing the count from Sesame Street. Like, 4 should be near the top. With AP classes, you can kind of start to creep into that 4.5. And it's like, yeah, and then your point about the quote, I immediately was just like, well, this is made up Florida propaganda. No way he said this. And I clicked on the article. Sure enough, the dad just straight up is quoted saying it. So, hey, yeah, this is as crazy as we initially read it.
I'm just baffled at that. Oh my God, unbelievable. But yeah, not exactly the best of times for Florida with national headlines, but despite the fact that actually, if you look at the recruiting rankings, they keep rising and they actually keep getting more and more commits, which is kind of crazy.
Oh, their class is awesome. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike. Well, really quick on Florida, it's unfortunate for them with the schedule thing because we both were pretty aligned about don't judge year one, kind of barely judge year two. Like maybe you get 7-8 wins in year two and kind of build. Now it's like, year three, I dang near would be like, dude, if you get 7 wins out of this schedule. So, but then that's not how coaching works. Like, you can't just have 3 redshirt years of not counting. So, unfortunately, the first year that is going to count, even from our very stand back standpoint for Billy Napier, is you got to count this third year, and it's going to be the hardest schedule I may have ever seen in my life.
Maybe it's kind of what Florida needs, though, in a strange way. I don't know. Maybe there's something to be said for that, and finally having low expectations for a coach entering year two. We've talked about that in the past and how that's been so hard to come by for all of these really post-Spurrier era coaches, and how difficult that has been to try and navigate that when expectations are immediately even Mullen winning a New Year's Six Bowl in year one, McElwain getting to an SEC championship in year one, rising above those expectations. We'll talk about this a lot moving forward, but maybe you could actually set up really well that seeing a schedule like this come out and seeing something like this come out, just a bizarre story with Austin Simmons, is everybody's off Florida. It's a whole lot easier to rise above that low bar than whatever sort of bar we were talking about 3-4 years ago with Tim Mullen. Mm-hmm. Can we talk about Arkansas not getting screwed? That was, blown away. How about Arkansas? Nobody came out better from the SEC schedule reveal than Arkansas, in my opinion. I thought Arkansas would have Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Texas, and Oklahoma all lined up. The way that it played out in 2020, you remember the way that it was just the worst team in the SEC, which that's what Arkansas was when you haven't won an SEC game in over 1,000 days. Yes, you are the worst team in the SEC. I thought they would get a little bit of a repeat of that, but nothing has said you have taken your program to a different place than having a really favorable draw in the SEC schedule. And instead, to be able to miss both Alabama and Georgia, that is a massive win. A&M also missed both Alabama and Georgia. To me, that should still be considered a monumental victory, and it should still have such a big emphasis on whether or not you have a schedule with that can possibly yield an SEC championship invite. To me, that's what we should be looking at more so than trying to figure out, how many teams won at least 9 games last year? It's that's going to change year to year. Alabama and Georgia have been the constants in the SEC. I absolutely love that every current SEC team will face either Texas or Oklahoma in year one. I think that's great. Great way to be able to bring those two teams into the conference and just say, hey, what does it look like? And not necessarily have some teams getting to face both of them and then other teams don't get to face them in year one. To me, the way that this was set up, this was the smartest move. You didn't necessarily give in to you need to have A&M and Mizzou facing both of them, and then maybe Florida's going to miss. No. To have everybody face at least one of those two teams. Let's see what we have in Oklahoma and Texas. That just throw them into the deep end, so to speak. I think that is a really smart move from that standpoint. And Oklahoma is a good reminder why you probably shouldn't overreact to strength of schedule, and it should not be set in stone going into 2024. Because if we're talking about Oklahoma this time last year, I was saying I think Oklahoma is going to go to the playoff in year one with Brent Venables. And yeah, I was very, very wrong on that. But if we were talking about Oklahoma at this time last year, it would have been automatic to pencil them in as one of the 2 or 3 toughest games on the schedule. And instead, what's Oklahoma?
But let me ask you this. I was just thinking, let me further scramble your baby brain here. At the beginning of the 24 season and at the end of the 2024 season, who do you think will be ranked higher? Texas or Oklahoma? 2 different answers.
Good Lord, Will.
Yep.
Texas will be ranked higher coming into the year.
Okay.
Because there is a path for Texas to lose a ton of production from this year's team. What could be, in my opinion, if Texas were 9-3 and ended up going to a New Year's Six Bowl, would not surprise me at all. There is a path for them to sort of override the loss of production that they could have via the transfer portal and then also the Arch Buzz, which will fuel that. Whereas Oklahoma coming into 2024, you assume that they were going to be, actually you shouldn't assume that they're going to be without Dylan Gabriel, because Dylan Gabriel still has multiple years of eligibility left.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that bananas? Yeah. Think about that. I did a story for SDS on 10 quarterbacks in college football who still had multiple years of eligibility left that you would not think that they do. And he was very much on that list. And I had to remind myself, oh, yeah, he actually could end up playing in the SEC. He could get a matchup against Josh Heupel in Tennessee. Like how weird that is to think about with how long Dylan Gabriel has been
Coach
around.
Mackenzie Milton.
And Coach Mackenzie Milton. Oh, great point, Will. Great point. Yeah, so what were we talking about? Yeah, so I would say that Texas will be ranked higher going into 2024. And yeah, I would probably say Texas has a better path to be ranked higher at the end of the season. Just because at this point, you're basing it on who do you have more faith in, Sark or Venables?
Right.
At this point, probably Sark. That might be unpopular.
It's a crazy thought. Yeah, I think to me, I think the Texas one feels easier at the beginning of the season. I feel like probably preseason that Texas team with Arch coming into the SEC is probably going to be like stupid overrated. But yeah, I'm so much more interested by that end of the year one because I don't know. I mean, Oklahoma is like, I felt the same, like let me take a step back. When you said who had the hardest schedule, I was like, well, I know LSU plays, USC and UCLA and Oklahoma and Alabama and all these other teams. So I was like, it's going to be hard to beat that. And I saw Florida and I was like, no shot, no questions asked there. But point being, when you see that Oklahoma logo, that's like, I saw the Oklahoma logo and I thought, oh my gosh, we got to play Oklahoma. And I thought to myself, we would have skunked Oklahoma this year. It would have been terrible, like for them. You know what I'm saying? Like, just to be honest. And so it's like, yeah, you just never know because it's two different things. It's two teams that, very recently Oklahoma has struggled. I'm not going to tell you they've struggled for a long period of time, but very recently they've struggled. And Texas has struggled for the last 10, 15 years in the Big 12. They're going to be coming to the SEC. And we might just be looking at teams that did the Mizzou for like 2 years where they were just like, what is going on? Like, because remember, Mizzou was 5-7, 2 straight years coming into the SEC. And then they like started getting it. Or was it 1 year or 2 years? My bad.
I think it was just the 1 year. Or they were bad their first year in the SEC. And
there we go. Okay.
Year 2 and year 3, they obviously get to Atlanta.
But yeah, like they might just kind of get punched in the mouth early, kind of like that, and just be like, oh, wait, hold on. We actually got to I hate to be mean, but we got to prepare for every team. Like every team's going to get our best, especially like these teams that come in with everyone hating them. Like I'm not being mean, but you have an opinion of Texas. You have an opinion of Oklahoma if you're an SEC fan of any sort, even if you're like a Florida fan or, a South Carolina fan. Well, you certainly have an opinion if you're a South Carolina fan. But point being, like, so they're going to actually be those teams that get people's best, but may not be ready for it, which those are always the most fun teams.
Yeah, think about how quickly things can change. Even go back to when A&M joined the SEC. And nobody in their right mind going into the season before, so going into 2011, would have said, oh, man, yeah, when that schedule comes out in 2012, like, you're going to have to face a Heisman Trophy winner and Johnny Manziel. They're going to finish in the top 5. Nobody would have been penciling them in for that because there was no sort of precedent. So it's difficult to look this far out. But, we could think very different things of teams across the board. And even teams that we feel like we have a pretty good feel for. What about a team like Auburn? If Auburn, with all of these guys in the portal, goes 8-4 this year, and then they return a lot of production. Maybe they win one of those games that they're not supposed to. And then all of a sudden, Auburn is like, oh man, like you got to go to Jordan Hare. Like that's brutal. And instead we're thinking about them in a different light. So obviously we'll have plenty of time to update our thoughts on the schedule and who got a tough draw, but some lost in the shuffle games for this 2024 slate. Some games that won't be happening. That's kind of a bummer to think about. No Bama A&M. No Bama A&M. 2 years ago, that wouldn't have been a move the needle game at all because Alabama owned that series, and it was like, oh God, even when A&M was good in 2020, Bama still kicked the crap out of them. But then these last 2 years, A&M has been obviously really bad, really disappointing, and they still play Bama down to the wire in both and end up splitting those 2 games and probably could have won both of those had they had a competent goal line call. But I'm bummed that we don't get that in 2024, given how much we have come to appreciate the Jimbo Saban feud, even if it was just fireworks a little over a year ago. But game like that, South Carolina kind of quietly, 3 of its rivalry games just wiped off the board. It was like, yeah, this doesn't matter anymore. South Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, Florida, like none of those games are on their slate for 2024. And that's going to feel weird because I think for different reasons, all 3 of those games this year in 2023 feel really important for determining who South Carolina is going to be and how we're going to view Shane Beamer at the end of year 3. No Tiger Bowl. No Tiger Bowl. Kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
We'll talk about LSU slate a little bit more with Jacob Hester, but love the Tiger Bowl. My only trip to Baton Rouge was 2019 Tiger Bowl, and you just kind of expect weird things are going to happen. Even with that LSU team who was just on a different planet, still the college football god said, nope, we need to have a competitive game with Auburn. That's just the way that things go. But not having that game on the schedule, you're kind of like, oh yeah. And look, I get it. I've been the guy saying, hey, we will find new rivalries. It's all going to be okay. I'm still allowed to present some of these as like, oh, like I'm going to miss that. We're not going to be able to get that. There is still a little bit of that nostalgia, even for somebody who is embracing what the SEC is going to become.
Yeah, I think like the Tiger Bowl, that's always been, like you said, a big rivalry. Bo Nix, just the champion of the Tiger. Every time that dude suited up for the Tiger Bowl was electric and like
wacky.
Two of the stupidest teams in the SEC, just the silliest Looney Tunes teams in the SEC. LSU and Auburn obviously both named the Tigers. So when they meet up, it's like LSU beat Auburn in 2013. Like all these crazy years of like, how did you get like the Cam Newton game in 2010? Like there are so many weird games. Obviously, like an Auburn game, more or less ended Les Miles' career. But the one that I'm actually super sad about is LSU Mississippi State ceasing to exist, because Mississippi State, we went to that game last year. It's on Mike Leach, and it's right around my birthday every year. Yep, I would get to go. There's this crazy record. I don't even keep up with it anymore, but it was like 14 straight or something. Like every year I got to just go to the game, watch it with my buddies around my birthday. LSU would beat Mississippi State. And I immediately was just like, oh, I'm going to miss playing that goofy, silly team that we always find a way to beat. And then I immediately saw the graphic they tweeted out, and I was like, this is what I'm talking about. I'm going to miss these weird people and playing them and beating them. Like, what a goofy team. So, yeah, I guess the two goofy, zaniest teams are off our schedule. That makes me sad.
It's like when your little brother or something like that and Mississippi State fans don't get too upset for me saying that you are a little brother to LSU, but it's kind of like, oh, like you play basketball every day with your little brother, and then all of a sudden, like your little brother just decides he doesn't want to play anymore, and big brother's like, "Oh, what's wrong?" And not that there was Mississippi State. Just scrap that.
I mean, at the end of the day, like I remember the DAC game. I was working at SDS for the DAC game, and everybody was just talking crap the entire time. I was like, and then the Nick Fitzgerald game was probably the worst loss. Where he was unstoppable. And, he looked like a Heisman Trophy winner that day. That guy was insane. And so, point being, like we definitely the series has been way closer lately. And, the record passing yards against Mike Leach, like it's kind of been a back and forth series quietly over the last like 5 or 6 years. I was talking about before that during like the line them up and run Les Miles years where LSU just had more talent. But yeah, and like I was just so sad we weren't on the goofy, zany, like humanoid Florida Gator Tiger CGI schedule. So if you guys haven't seen that, look that up.
Wild. People love to go over the top with these schedule reveals. It's because you got so much time in this time of year, and people really, the graphics departments, man, they're all over the place. Notable things that we are getting with the 2024 SEC schedule: Georgia, Bama in the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
Sign me up for that until further notice. That is always going to be game of the year potential in my book. Here's an interesting question. The toughest game on Bama's 2024 schedule, Will. Home against Georgia, at LSU, at Tennessee, or at Oklahoma?
I'm not being mean, but I do think we can cross Oklahoma off based on our last schedule or our last conversation. Yeah, I mean it's gotta be Georgia, right? Like as much as I joke about Tiger Stadium, Marler always has that stat about they've only won so many times at Tiger Stadium, or LSU has only defended Tiger Stadium so many times against Bama. So that home field obviously does not mean much for LSU historically, and that is another rivalry that's quietly been back and forth over the last 3 or 4 years, which is stupid to say because it always gets built up and we would get blown out. But these last 4 have been like really good games. So yeah, but I think that Georgia is obviously the team to beat right now in the SEC.
If you're the person who lives for the Bama is locked into a tight one late, that's when you turn on a Bama game. I think you're going to like 2024. And yeah. I'm not saying the dynasty's dead. I'm just saying there could be a lot of those opportunities with the way the schedule sets up. Georgia at Texas. That should be fun. Little Sugar Bowl. We're back. We get a rematch of that. That's going to be fun. How many times between now and then will we hear someone claim that Texas is back? Over, under, infinity.
Oh, I mean, yeah. Like I said, with the schedule release thing and like all the hype, like it's been so ridiculous. There's so many ways it could go that like if you're a Texas fan, you're just mainlining hopium right now.
I was talking to some Georgia fans. They're disappointed about their home slate, and understandably so. just sell yourself on some fun road trips. I know that the home slate, it is a massive bummer kind of through 2024. Even the Clemson opener is in Atlanta. You don't get to see that game in Athens. But starting in 2025, I do think that is going to change for Georgia. And I say that without even really knowing the SEC schedule, because I'd be stunned if Bama didn't travel to Georgia in 2025. 8-9 game conference schedule. I don't think that matters. I think Bama goes to Georgia that following year. Georgia home games will also include Texas or Oklahoma, probably. I'm assuming that's going to be the case. I think water's going to kind of find its level with that home slate. And if it doesn't, just appreciate the fact that no team is worthy of entering Athens and presenting any sort of a challenge. And you get to go home by halftime. Not the worst thing in the world.
I just want to say this really quick. I just peeped Texas's 2025 schedule just to see who they had locked in. Prepare ourselves, boys, for Texas as an SEC team that we must root for at Ohio State.
That is interesting. Did that game... I lose track of the games, the series that Ohio State has had to cancel. But I felt like that was canceled at some point.
According to FBschedules.com, who has been pretty right, it's still on there. So like I said, like I was looking at it, it's like, who do we root for in this game? And it's like, has to be Texas now that they're in the SEC, because if Ohio State beats them, they're going to pretend like they just beat Alabama.
True. Quinn Ewers, will he still be at Texas for that one in a rematch against his former school that he spent so much time at? Probably not. New, potentially fun 2024 games that I'm excited for. Alabama at Oklahoma, Tennessee at Oklahoma. I know we've had that. We had that in the 2010s. Still, I think that has potential to be a good one. Oklahoma at LSU, Florida at Texas, and then obviously buried the lead here, Texas at Texas A&M. That's college game day. I don't care if those teams suck. I don't care if those teams are fighting to get to Shreveport. College game day will be there. Smart move to reward the SEC or to reward A&M with that home game in 2024. Little savvy little thing. I'm very interested to see kind of what that looks like on the back end if it does end up being the back and forth from there. The dumb hot take for that game is that both Sark and Jimbo will be fired by then. Either will be coaching. Might see some people come out on Twitter and say that. Never mind the fact that Jimbo firing him at the end of the 2023 season would cost A&M, my Iowa notepad tells me, nearly $77 million. And I've already outlined kind of why I think Sark is more secure than people realize because of the whole Arch Manning thing. Even though, look, on the surface, nobody would be surprised if Texas paid $18 million to fire a coach after year 3. But my bet would be on both of those coaches still being there for that game in 2024. Rivalry renewed. Texas A&M 2024 is just as the college football gods intended. That dumb steer Bevo will hopefully not have some sort of pent up aggression, getting loose, maybe charging a certain reveille. We know Bevo loves nothing more than charging at dogs 1/8 his size. And if that dumb steer gets loose and charges another one of our beloved mascots, just PETA, come on.
Just get him out of here. Yeah, that's the moment the cadets have been preparing for generations. Though, right? You see Bevo start charging, they like hop over the side. Like, let's fight Bevo. It's like 100 people just punching Bevo. Like, get away from Beverly. That would be a hilarious scene. It's like, this is why we don't have this rivalry, because someone's gonna fight Bevo.
Bevo would stand down in a second. They don't
just start whooping at him to scare him off.
Just heal Bevo. I think we're allowed to be excited for 2024 while also being bummed that we don't have another handful of headliner games, because if it was a 9-game conference schedule, man, we would have, like, seriously, we would be looking at this awestruck. It would feel like every single team is like, oh my God, I got the toughest schedule in the world. And maybe we will get that. I'm going to quadruple down. I'll say one more time, I think it happens in 2025. I do. Despite the stalemate, it's awkward, but I do hope that's the case and that there's a compromise between ESPN and the SEC, because it would be fun to see it, especially in an era where the playoff size it's tripled. Okay, it ain't 14 playoff anymore. There will be regular season moments that weren't what they once were, at least for the sports elite. I realize that there's a group of teams where all of a sudden this becomes a lot more relevant. But any other thoughts on SEC scheduling announcements coming out last week?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, an SEC podcast, people are going to say that we're, drinking the Kool-Aid regardless. But I do think that this is actually, looking at these schedules, a pretty smart move to start with 8 games, at least like warm people up, because I can almost personally guarantee you throw that 9 game in there, and that would have completely cost at least, 1 to 3 teams some type of a playoff chance heading into the end of the year. And it just wouldn't make for as compelling television just because, you would have to think about how you're scheduling this stuff, right? I mean, like to your point about Florida playing UCF, like that series was just kind of up in the air. Like that could have gotten played whenever. So playing it next year is so perfect because it's like, okay, well, this is technically a team that was like out of conference and normally where we play a cupcake. But if we had a 9th SEC game, they wouldn't have any cupcakes on their schedule at all because they're out of conference where all 3 of the Florida teams. So yeah,
Samford. Samford. I think we have to count as a juggernaut given how good they look.
I'm saying that if they had a oh, a good one. There you go. But yeah, no, that's the game that would probably get missed or not played, with the 9th game. That's what I'm saying. So like that would come off and then you'd end up playing, some random other team. And so, or like good SEC team. So yeah, I think that's the thing is like, people are always going to be mad at the SEC and say, whatever, but there will be enough quality wins in there to get a team where they need to be if they're truly a good team. But at the same side, I do agree with Sankey's position as far as the TV side of it. Of course, you thought about that before me. I'm glad to have you back. It's quick aside on that. Perry texted me like something really, really in depth about like Texas's scheduling. And I was like, I took for granted that I could just hop on the Zoom call and ask you dumb questions twice a week. I was like, I'm really missing that in my life. I sound a lot dumber on Twitter these days because I'm just firing off the first thing I think of. But anyway, so like, yeah, I think that even though it's going to sound like homerism, I do think going 8 right now, there's really no reason not to because to your point, they don't need help getting in. And if you're going to get something for free, which is their positioning at ESPN, it's like, hey, we'll keep it 8, man. We don't really care. And there's no reason to just give stuff up for free, which is, like I said, where the Big Ten is rapidly heading is just there's a word for it I'm missing. But anyway.
Okay, so yes, speaking of that, because there are a lot of people outside of the SEC that feel the SEC is going to once again get the benefit of the doubt from the committee, and it's not fair because look at the amount of Power 5 opponents they're playing, and I totally understand why there is that pushback. But keep this in mind if you think that the SEC is just loaded with cupcakes and they're just all about making life as easy as possible on themselves. From 2025 to 2029, there are 6 SEC teams who have multiple Power 5 non-conference games on their schedule, meaning they'll play at least 10 Power 5 opponents. Alabama does that all 5 years. Florida does that all 5 years. So does Georgia. So does South Carolina, Mizzou, and Ole Miss. They have 1 year, which they have that. But really focus on Alabama and Georgia doing that and saying, we're going to play at least 10 Power 5 opponents every single year, no matter if it's 8-game conference schedule or a 9-game conference schedule. That's your top 2 contenders right there. The Big Ten's top 3 contenders, I think we would say Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, right? We can agree on that?
Yeah.
They will also be facing 10 Power 5 teams every year from 2025 to 2029. So before you say that the SEC's contenders are going to get off easy forever, remember what it would look like even if the SEC did decide we're going to a 9-game conference schedule. All of a sudden, the SEC contenders would actually be playing more, despite the fact that we have 2 decades worth of data that shows us the SEC has a better conference than the Big Ten. I don't think that there's any pushback against that at this point, but keep that in mind because you're going to see a lot of people that are really frustrated, especially when those first playoff rankings come out. And it's, the SEC is benefiting just because it doesn't want to schedule that 9th conference game. And by then, we're probably going to know in 2024. And that's the ironic thing is this isn't really some proof of concept thing. If you're thinking that the SEC is going to wait and see how this plays out in 2024, and then they'll make the decision afterwards if they want to expand and add that extra conference game. No, that's not the case. They will get this decided by this time next year. They will not have that proof of concept. And because remember, obviously 2023, Texas and Oklahoma aren't in the SEC yet. So they're stalling. They're stalling to try and get more money. That's what this all kind of comes down to. But it is a very interesting breakdown, and to see all the different people that have something at stake and why there has been such a difference in opinion. It feels like really since Texas and Oklahoma, we found out they were going to be joining the SEC, but it's too bad.
Yeah, and I will say too, like people don't factor in how many SEC teams have these great out of conference matchups. I mean, Florida State, no slouch. We see Clemson on here twice. You know what I'm saying? That's obviously one of those is perpetual and the other has been scheduled. But yeah, I mean, look, it's not Georgia's fault that Georgia Tech stinks. Like, I'm not going to hear, oh, Georgia Tech's a cupcake, because that's their own fault. They've been good most of our lives. And so, yeah, like, you kind of look at those and it's just like, all right, like, then also, like, you know, Kentucky-Louisville, I thought was a great rivalry. So, yeah, and then you go outside of that to that next level. It's like, I mean, Clemson's such a great proof of concept, as you were saying, great example, where it's like, well, they play South Carolina, but then they schedule Georgia, Auburn, whoever outside of conference. So it's not like, oh, well, yeah, we're going to schedule Duke or we're going to schedule whoever and just have that Power 5 team that we can hold up and say, look, we played 10 Power 5 teams. Like, no, these are teams, like I said, LSU's playing USC and UCLA, which feels aggressive. I'll be honest. It feels like one of those is kind of pointless, but you know what? Here we are.
Yeah, if teams like LSU and Alabama and Georgia were simply saying, you know what, we wouldn't really want to load up the schedule. We're just gonna hope that this is good enough. I would understand some of the pushback, but I feel like a lot of people who are really pushing back on that as it relates to the playoff, they are not factoring in what those future schedules look like, and you know they have said we will load up non-conference play. We will play anybody, anywhere, anytime. I know Kirby was talking about how much it's overrated. I don't think it's overrated, the debate between 8 games and 9 games, because of the stark difference in the playoff success in the 4-team era. But at the same time, I kind of understand what he's saying as someone who has been willing to play multiple Power 5 opponents in non-conference play every single year.
Yeah, I mean, Alabama's got, that's the other one, is Wisconsin. Like I said, it's like not being mean, but not Bama's fault that Wisconsin, for most of our lives, is in the top 10, top 5 team, and now they're kind of a little bit down. They have a new head coach, so we'll see what they do. But yeah, I mean, if you look at Bama, again, all this is subject to change. I fully understand that. But if you look at Bama, they scheduled Florida State for 2025 and Wisconsin. Yeah. If you're playing Wisconsin and Florida State at a conference, and obviously, you know, Auburn and whoever else is on that schedule. So, yeah, I mean, I would joke about Bama's schedule. I would joke about Georgia's schedule just kind of like throughout, you know, my life. But now it's like, okay, those jokes are gone. Like, once you start scheduling these huge teams at a conference and you have more conference games and you had Texas and Oklahoma, it's like, bro, shut up and just watch Rutgers, all right? Like, just enjoy your Rutgers game and shut up.
Bama ain't scared. And if Bama was scared, we'd be hearing about cancellations for a lot of these future non-conference games.
Yep.
And that has not been the case, at least not yet. All right. Let's kick it to Hester. Did a little home and home with him. I went on off the bench on Monday morning and then chatted with him just a few hours later. So spent my Monday with one of our great friends, Jacob Hester. Talked some SEC running back things, a little bit LSU, Maason Smith, a bit more. We went all over the place. So here he is, Jacob Hester. We're now excited to be joined by a very special guest. It is the one and only Jacob Hester. Hester, let's start with the important stuff here. Baby number 5 can be here any day. Your lovely wife is about to have baby girl number 1.
Yes.
What are the emotions like for you right now, especially knowing that you're about to get that much closer to being just like your boy, Phillip Rivers?
Yeah, he's my mentor. So when people ask me about having children, I'm like, look, I'm only having baby number 5. I'm trying to keep up with my mentor, Phillip Rivers. And also, you know this, Connor, I have a 12-passenger van. Well, there's only currently right now 6 in our family, soon to be 7. Someone's got to fill up the 12-passenger van, and it might as well be me. So I'm not even saying that the roster's complete. We still might have transactions out there.
What?
It is, yeah, look, it is what it is at this point. And again, like when your mentor has 9, you're only having baby number 5. Like there's still things that you have to live up to. Now it could be complete. I'm not saying that it's, you know, one way or the other, but I'm just saying a 12-passenger van leaves room to add to the roster.
My mom was one of 12. So
What?
Yeah.
Wait, we've known each other for like 5 years, and I'm just now hearing this?
My mom was one of 12. She is a triplet, and it's a little bit different because my grandma it wasn't like she had them all like year after year. I guess she kind of did, but
look, you have 12. I don't know if there's a way to do it that's not having them year after year, even if you have triplets in there.
That's true. And she was 8, so it was 9, 10, and 11. My mom was number 9. And I always say to my grandpa, like, thank God you didn't stop after 8. So, like, maybe one day your future kids will say, thank God you didn't stop after number 5. And you just kept going and tried to build yourself an entire football team.
Yeah, or a 6 foot and under basketball team. Either way.
6 foot and under. Your kids are going to be tall, man. What are you talking about? Your kids are already really tall.
Yeah, maybe so. So my oldest, who's 13, he's going into the 8th grade. He's got, you know, he didn't turn 14 till September. He just got me. He just passed me up.
I didn't want to mention that, but he did.
It's okay. It's okay. He mentions it literally every day. And so, our dynamic, we certainly have tall people in our family. Look, I'm 5'11". It is what it is. And I got 5'11", Connor, at the NFL Combine. If I'm being honest with myself, I think I'm 5'10 and a half. I don't even think I'm 5'11". But, that's a measurement that a lot of people use. So I'll use it here. But this. I've told you this 1,000 times. I'll tell the audience again, low man wins. Every single time. So I'm okay with it.
You're exactly right. And there's nothing wrong with accepting that. I have already accepted the very likely possibility that my daughter, who is measuring in the 99th percentile.
Yeah, let's don't bury the lead. Don't bury the lead. I mean, you gave me that 1 week checkup.
Dude,
you got a volleyball player on your hands.
At 2 weeks, she's coming in at 9 pounds, 7 ounces, and she is in the 99th percentile in terms of length, height, whatever you want to call it for a baby. My wife is 5'10". I am 5'8". So I am already picturing this world in which, when I'm old and gray and I'm shrinking, which I'm not that far off from it, but it's coming. I'm going to look and I'm going to have 2 women who are taller than me, and I'm okay with that. There is nothing wrong with that. Low man wins, just like you said.
There's no doubt. Look, my mom's 5'10". I mean, we always looked eye to eye growing up. It's okay. Low man does win. We all know that. We've gotten that out of the way. And I want all of my children to be taller than me. Like, people are like, how do you feel about that? I'm like, great. I'm hoping one of those jokers finds a way to play a professional sport if we can, or maybe even at bare minimum, let's get college paid for.
Yep.
That's that's the top goal. Let's get college paid for. Then we'll figure the rest of the things out after that.
Your daughter is now set up for the most intimidating atmosphere ever to walk into. 4 older brothers.
Yeah.
Dad played in the NFL. Outside of you sitting on your front porch with a shotgun and a can of dip spit, I don't know that you can create a more intimidating atmosphere for her, despite the fact that you were a very kind human being who is not intimidating at all.
I will also be wearing a neck roll at all times. Like, when someone comes to pick my daughter up for a first date situation, I'm going to wear the old 1990s Pee Wee football neck roll, the foam one, like the big, thick, white foam neck roll. I'll have that on, and he'll know, right? He'll know exactly what that means. It means I mean business, all right? And I will ISO block your ass right now, kid, okay?
God. Well, just turn on the film, 2007 Florida.
Well, it's going to be grainy. It's already grainy. By that point, they might not even have something that will play that tape, but it's okay. It's okay.
That's true.
I'll still have it.
Okay, so speaking of LSU, Florida, let's talk some schedule stuff. That's still happening for 2024. You got the only thing that you wanted, right? That was the only thing on the Jacob Hester checklist in terms of LSU's 2024 schedule.
I mean, all jokes aside, it kind of was. I love that game. And it's not because that's the game that I'm probably best known for and I had that moment. Like, I love that I had that moment. But Florida, to me, Florida and LSU, it was the rivalry when I was in school. It just was. And Coach Saban made it that way. When I first got there in 2004, LSU won the Natty in 2003. And then Florida was the only team to beat him in that year, and we're about to play him in 2004. And I remember him getting up in front of the team, and Steve Spurrier had called him basically to talk trash about, you won the national championship, but you still couldn't find a way to beat my Gators. And Nick, and that made him so angry. And I remember him telling us that story. And poor Ron Zook had to pay for Steve Spurrier's comments, and we beat him in the swamp. But it was a great game. I mean, Joe Adai just took over that game. And so, like, for me, and my mom was born in Gainesville, and like when I was growing up, like that was kind of the standard of the SEC. Like CD and those teams that they had, and Danny Warfel, and we could go name after name, like that was kind of the standard in our footprint. And that's what we kind of watched, and certainly being an offensive guy. So it already meant something to me very early in my career. And then we have another great game in 2005. 2006, they get the best of us and they go win a national championship. 2007, we get the best of them. We win a national championship. The next year, they win one. So it almost kind of turned into if you win this game, you win the Natty. Like, it felt like that, at least. And there's bad blood, which is always great for a rivalry game. There's always something crazy, a fake punt, a fake field goal, going for it on 4th downs, a fog game, a cleat throw, a 8-yard field goal it was in the fog that Cade York somehow, I couldn't even see the goalpost, but he nailed it. That game gives you something every single time. And so, like, for me to have that in 2024, I love it. It's probably going to go away at some point, but I don't think people realize, and I got onto my guy Andy Staples because it's not a rivalry game. I'm like, man, but it is. Like, they've played that game every year since the early 70s. Like, that's a game that goes back a long time that people I think they might have missed like 1 year in that whole run, but these schools play each other. I mean, the Florida goal line stand, it's not just LSU moments. I mean, where Darius Guice goes the wrong way and they stop him and they, win that game. There's just so many moments, Connor. That game can't go away for me. And it's not just because, again, the 2007 game, that's just a piece of the puzzle.
You can make a case it's the best crossover rivalry in the SEC in the 21st century. Now, I realize other people would push back on that and say, oh, you know what about like Bama, Georgia or something like that? What it has become with Kirby and Saban. And there are definitely other ones that you could probably point to. And I know a lot of people love Georgia, Auburn, but like there's something to be said for that. And Alabama, Tennessee, what it was last year, but for so long, obviously it was a one-sided rivalry and how crazy that game has been. I think, you factor that in and you look at the schedule and you say for LSU, okay, we actually should feel pretty good about this. You know that you're still going to end up having to face Bama, but really nice draw. Like, Bama and Oklahoma are at home. The road slate, in my opinion, 4 winnable games for LSU. Should we be talking about 2024 as this real title window for LSU? Is it probably too early to be saying something like that?
Well, look, when it was released, I mean, you take a look at it, and there's a lot of schools that I could be like, okay, that's a tough situation. That's an easy situation. I guess we won't really know until we get there because college football, more so than ever, just changes like in a snap. It used to be like it was kind of the same, and you could kind of predict 3-4 years out. You can't really do that anymore. But right now, as you look at it, and you could throw in the non-conference games that you and I were talking about earlier, you've got USC in Las Vegas. That's going to be what we think is a difficult game, depending on how USC continues to grow. UCLA is going to be at home. Now, UCLA beat you when you went to the Rose Bowl. I think they're building a nice program there. They're going to be in the Big Ten. They're going to have some juice. And so you throw those 2 non-conference games, which still like 2 Big Ten games against USC and UCLA just doesn't feel right. But hopefully by that point, it will feel normal. But, I mean, when you look at the SEC slate, I think you did well. I mean, getting Bama and Oklahoma at home, I'm shocked that they didn't have Texas LSU.
Yeah.
Think about the 2019 game. LSU goes to Texas, one of the best games of that year. A 3rd and 17 conversion wins you that game. You miss out on the return trip because of COVID. So LSU never gets that return trip. There was they had the heat on in the locker room, and there was no air conditioning. I mean, there was back and forth. They're bordering states. It feels like that's going to be a thing. And I know LSU and Texas A&M have kind of become their own thing, but I'm shocked that Texas isn't on the 2024 schedule for LSU. But look, if we're sitting here and we're predicting it, getting Oklahoma, because you were going to get one or the other. We all know that by now. You're going to get Texas or Oklahoma, and you get that game at home. There's nothing really to complain about as far as LSU's schedule. Although I do think, throwing the 2 Big Ten games in there makes it very interesting.
I'm going to confess something to you, and I don't often confess when something slips past me a little bit. I just kind of try and make up for it, and I'll talk about it a little bit more than I did just to make up for lost time. But yeah. I kind of forgot about Maason Smith a little bit. And I'm just talking early in the offseason as we're talking about LSU projecting with 2023, and Harold Perkins is the headliner, of course. But he's fully cleared after the season-ending injury that he suffered, obviously first series against Florida State. And if I said to you, all right, is there a chance that the best player on LSU is not Harold Perkins and it's instead Maason Smith this year? Is that totally bananas, or is there something to that?
I don't think it would be totally crazy to say that because of who we know he can be and who he was. Like, gosh, the first couple of plays of the Florida State game, you're like, okay, here he is. This is the guy that we knew he could be. He had a freshman year under his belt where he played a ton and then, jumps up one time, comes down wrong on the turf, and we don't see him again. As far as talent, I mean, he's got as much talent as anybody that's going to be on any field that he plays on. But now it's like, okay, what are you going to look like after that knee injury? So, look, I'm not going to hate on you for, not really having him on the forefront of your mind when a guy gets injured like that, but also the guy that kind of stepped in, Mekhi Wingo, was an All-American.
True.
At the same position. So, he takes away some of that from Maason because he went in there and he dominated. I mean, you go look at the Pro Football Focus grades every single week, and he was tops in the country like week after week, and he played like every single snap. And we should have known that he was going to be a player when he came over from Missouri. All the recruiting services had him like as the highest ranked transfer LSU was taking in, but nobody was talking. And I'm raising my hand. Like, we were talking about, like we often do, the skill players and the DBs and all the Jaden Daniels coming in. It's like, no, this Mekhi Wingo guy is pretty special. And he lived up to it and then some. So he was a 3rd-team All-American. So that takes a little bit of it away. But now you've got, like, when you look at, I think Athlon had their first team defense, all SEC. I think both those guys were the defensive tackles, Mekhi Wingo and Maason Smith. And that's going to be important because the edge is going to be a question for LSU.
Yeah.
Like, who takes over for B.J. Ojulari? Who takes over for Ali Gay? Those are guys that played a long time in an LSU uniform and played at a high level, especially B.J. So you got some transfers coming in, and you got some candidates to take over, including some young guys. But if you're going to stay true to Harold Perkins being a Mike linebacker in the middle of that defense and not playing edge, okay, then you better have somebody step up, because you can have really good defensive tackles that are going to help in the run game, but you need somebody to also set the edge and get after the quarterback. And that's going to be a question, like for fall camp. If I go out to practice, I'm going to be paying attention to that group.
And Maason Smith, in an ideal world, is helping you take care of some of those questions you have at edge. And ideally, you're being able to kind of move him a little bit interchangeably. You can line up on the inside, a little bit on the outside, and think about how much he could potentially be freeing up those guys at the next level and make life easier on a Harold Perkins, who is going to be at the top of every single scouting report, no matter what. And if he's able to take on multiple guys, even if he isn't lighting up the stat sheet, there's a lot to like. I kind of wonder, is there, and I probably won't be a guy who puts him on the preseason All-SEC team just because I'm like, I need to see it. Your best game is against, what was it, against like McNeese State or something like that, where he really kind of broke out, looked like a stud. But what's the ceiling for him? Are we talking about somebody that has those Jalen Carter type, that Jalen Carter type upside? Is that crazy to say, or should we be kind of calming expectations, a little bit more wait and see mode coming off the injury?
Look, you got to go do that. Like, you have to go be that guy. Now, he has it in him. Like, if you're talking about potential, he's got that in him. Remember, he's a 5-star guy. I mean, he was one of the top players in the country. As a freshman, you saw it. You saw flashes. But now you got to go see it against the big dogs. You got to go see it against a Florida State in the opener. So, like, yeah, potential. But potential gets your foot in the door, right? You got to do something after you get that foot in the door that makes me say, okay, yeah, he could be Jalen Carter, because Jalen Carter made it impossible for teams to do anything against Georgia at times. And I played with Glenn Dorsey, who in my time was the most disruptive defensive tackle in college football. Connor, there was times we had to shut down practice. Like, if we were going good on good, ones on ones, we couldn't get a playoff sometimes. And we had a pretty good offensive line. But there would be times, and we'd be like, hey, all right, get him out. Get him out of practice. We're trying to get a playoff here, 9-on-7, ones-on-ones in training camp, and we can't block 72. Get him out of here. I mean, that's how disruptive he was. Is that potential in Maason? It is. But, again, coming off a knee injury. Now, he's had a full year. It wasn't like it was the last game of the season. It was the first game of the season. So he's fully healthy. He's ready to go. But, and T-Bob and I have talked about this a lot, because T-Bob had an ACL. The first couple times out there, man, you're worried, and you're nervous, and you're thinking about it. And that's going to be a portion of his offseason. Now, how quickly can he get rid of that? That's going to be up to him. But you don't really have time to wait. You've got Florida State, as we mentioned in that opener. So he has the potential, but now you got to go out there and see it.
Going up against Dorsey every day in practice, how many moments did you just say to yourself, please God, just let him have an off day? Because that's back in the time too, where you're probably dealing with a lot more full contact in practice than what we're talking about today.
Yeah, and you look, for me, like, my specialty was like either a fullback belly right in the middle, or like a 20-30 ISO right in the middle. And when I first got there, it was Kyle Williams, who played like 37 years in the NFL, was an all-pro half those years, might even end up being a Hall of Famer. Like, okay. But then it was like Glenn Dorsey. And again, like, Glenn's like the nicest human being of all time, which it didn't really match his play because he was so dominant. But there was so many times, like, I'd felt like, oh, man, I'm reading the defense. I'm good. You putting a foot in the ground to go like a cutback, because he'd be on the front side. He would throw the center like 3 yards out of the way and just be waiting on you, and then would laugh at you, right? Because he knew exactly what he just did. So, it was so difficult. I'd never been around a player where literally, like, Jimbo calling the offenses would, like, yell at Pelini, like, hey, get him out of there. We're trying to practice, and we can't get a playoff.
It's like what Bama did with Will Anderson. Like, moments where this isn't even fair. We're not going to get anything done if we just have guys.
I can't imagine going against, as a running back, going against Will Anderson in training camp in 1-on-1s, right? Pass protection, because that's always like a defensive drill, because there's a lot of space. Not that he would need a lot of space, but like, I would almost look back and be like, y'all know this is going to go bad for me, right? Like, y'all know there's nothing I could do, like, because I can't cut him. It's practice. He's going to either run through me or around me. I'm just letting y'all know, all right? You're setting me up for failure here, because, that's one of those guys where you can't get things done because he's so damn good and disruptive.
Yeah, you can say iron sharpens iron, and then you can realize
you can try.
Sure,
you can try. Look, you're not gonna maybe back down from the task at hand, but you're just you're realistic as well.
Yeah. Speaking of Bama, are you fully prepared for the fact that if LSU is picked to win the West, it pretty much just guarantees Bama's going to win a national title? You're ready for that, right?
Yeah, isn't it wild that every time that this kind of comes up and it's like, well, maybe there's a team, and it hasn't always been LSU, but it's been LSU more times than not. If it's a team getting, picked out of the West, it's not Alabama. It's just like, okay, we'll find a way. And they do. And this one feels a little bit different. There's some questions that a lot of us have, but LSU's kind of different as well too. Like LSU under Brian Kelly feels a little bit different, and it's wild because LSU outside of Bama the last 23 years, they've had the most success as far as national championships, but it still does feel weird for everyone to kind of be so high on a team not named Alabama coming out of the SEC West, even a team like LSU. And so, yes, getting the media days, there's going to be the questions, who did you have first in the West? Because, look, we know who you had first in the East. That's nobody cares about that. We know it's going to be Georgia. And if you didn't choose Georgia, then we're going to have real questions about why are you here at SEC Media Day, right? But I don't know, man. I don't know if it's a sure thing, Connor. It might be a 50-50 type deal because the more people I talk to, and I think you're Alabama, right?
As of right now, yes.
Right,
but I've also said that if LSU is the pick to win the West, I might just have to change my national championship pick and just make sure Alabama. Yeah,
right. And man, both teams are loaded. Both squads have guys. We all know that. That's why they're LSU and Alabama. It's the quarterback situation that I think a lot of people are leaning on when it comes to choosing between the two, because it is a close battle. And when you look at what Jaden Daniels was able to do last year, was he perfect? No. Was he big in the Florida, Ole Miss, Alabama stretch? As good as any quarterback in the country almost during that 3-week stretch. But he also had games like Arkansas and A&M. But you would expect year number 2, he's going to be more like the guy we saw in that 3-week stretch and that 2-week stretch of games. And so for me, if I'm going, whoever it is at Alabama, if it is Buckner, because he comes from Notre Dame, you would assume, obviously, he's him and Tommy Rees, and they have that relationship. Who are you going to choose? Are you going to choose Jaden Daniels and even Garrett Nussmeier, right? If you want to go 2 quarterbacks deep at LSU, or Tyler Buckner, I think you're still going to pick LSU in a quarterback battle. So it's a very tight race. I do think LSU has, obviously, the matchup there as far as quarterbacks, but I don't know exactly what it's going to look like at SEC Media Day. I don't know if people are really going to choose LSU, but the rosters are very, very similar. They're not that far apart where I think it matters, because I think either way, it's going to be an incredibly close vote. But knowing Coach Saban like I do, he's almost probably hoping that LSU gets the nod, because he'll use that as motivation every single day.
Yummy rat poison. It's going to be there. It's going to be there. I'm ready for it.
And then the other way, Brian Kelly, he seems like at LSU, he wants all of it. Yeah, which is I didn't really know that about him, but even having private conversations, he's like, look, I'm at LSU. Yeah, we want those expectations. We want to be first. We want to play Alabama. We want that is something 2 coaches can take that 2 different ways and try to run with it.
I want to pick your brain about Quinshon Judkins a little bit, because I brought this point up a few weeks ago, and feel free to use these numbers on one of the 8 different shows that you host. Last 15 seasons, Judkins, Chubb, Gurley, Lattimore, they had the most rushing yards of any SEC true freshman. Chubb, Gurley, Lattimore, they all get hurt as sophomores. Yeah. Judkins averaged 21.1 carries per game last year, most by a Power 5 true freshman since Jonathan Taylor, A.J. Dillon. They hit that mark in 2017. You know the position, you know the league. You also know how tricky it is to kind of navigate that workload, especially for a team like Ole Miss, who I think it's fair to say they lack some of those proven offensive weapons. How would you kind of manage his workload, especially knowing the scheme and that it's really hard to kind of dial it back?
Yeah, you got to be careful. You have to pay attention to it. And remember, and by the way, let's start off with saying he's a stud. I mean, absolute stud, over 1,500 rushing yards, almost had 6 yards a carry in the SEC, but there's no Zach Evans. And people kind of forget that. He took some workload off of Judkins last year. He could he was a 1,000-yard back in his own right. Who's going to be that guy? Can you have that guy come in and have that type of production where Lane Kiffin doesn't feel like he has to run Judkins out there every single time they run the football? Because this is a football team for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because he's an offensive visor guy, and everybody that wears a visor that's an offensive coach likes to throw the football. That's not Lane. Lane wants to run the football. He is going to run gap scheme run. He's going to run power. He's going to run counter. He's going to run, he'll run zone, obviously, but he wants to run the football and kind of do it in a physical manner. Who's going to be that secondary back? Will they have that guy? Can that back come in and give you what Zach Evans gave you a year ago? Because you don't want to have Judkins up to 330 carries. He had 274 last year, and that's a lot. That's a high number. Now, if you stay around that number, I think you're okay. What does the quarterback run game look like? Who wins the quarterback battle is going to be important as well. But depending on which quarterback wins, that's going to kind of set up how many runs you'll have from the quarterback position. So even more so than actually Judkins himself, you got to see who can be Zach Evans, right? Who can be that secondary back that can come in there. Now, there was a slight drop off, not a huge one. Zach Evans still was a really good running back, but who can be that guy is going to be the question.
Ulysses Bentley is the guy that they're hoping. All Bang the Drum team member. Ulysses Bentley came over from SMU last year.
Yeah. You just hope so you can say that name as many times as you possibly can. It's a great
Ulysses Bentley the fourth.
Oh, there's 3 others?
There's 3 others. I would love to track all of them down and just talk to them about what it was like when they realized their name was Ulysses Bentley and that it happened before. It's an all-time name.
It's almost like as soon as you set that name up, you're going to be Studley in something. I don't know what it is. RB singer feels like that could be one as well, but I love my RB.
You do?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I didn't know this.
Connor, when I was making a mix CD and passing it out in middle school and high school, it was going to have Usher. It was going to have Jagged Edge. It was going to have Jodeci. It was going to have all of it. Oh, yeah.
When you
about it. Tony Rich Project, if you go a little bit farther back.
And then people would look at you and be like, why is this guy wearing all this Hollister with puka shells and a chin strap beard? Why is he handing out?
It wasn't a chin strap. It was a soul patch, sir.
You didn't have the chin. I had the chin strap.
See, I could not, man. That was a lot. You had to get it just right. See, I just went for the soul patch.
It's an interesting look. I'll say that. But I look back on Jacob Hester on recruiting visits, and I think you posted that to Instagram, what was that, a couple weeks ago or something like that. And I'm thinking to myself, God, that guy was the most popular kid in the entire school, wasn't he?
Well, look, you and I are the same age. You know the look.
No, we're not. No, we're not. Don't put me that kind. How old do you think I am, Hester?
Oh my gosh. I'm older than you are. You're probably 34.
All right, that's close enough. I'm 33. That's good.
Okay, yeah, okay. I'm 38. I was trying to give myself a couple of years, but the time. You were in middle school, so you were trying to be the high school guy. We all try to be the high school guy when we're in middle school. It was all the rage, okay? At least it was at my school. Hollister, Abercrombie, it was the puka shells. You just went to the beach that summer. You went to Destin or PCB or one of those. You got yourself a nice necklace. You might have had some sun in your hair from playoff baseball because everybody dyed their hair. Look, it was a vibe, okay? I know it's hard to explain the vibe that it was here, in the year of our Lord 2023, but it was in the early 2000s.
You fit the vibe. It wasn't gritty. You turned into a much grittier version of yourself. But
yeah, okay. My dad would remind me how gritty-less it was all the time. My dad, former Marine, city policeman, he let me know about it all the time.
Do you remember your career high for carries in a game?
Ooh, Arkansas 2007.
Very good. How many did you have that day?
Oh gosh, I have 22.
28.
Oh, 28. Okay.
28.
We lost that game obviously, but that was a fun one. If you're a fan of running the football between McFadden and Felix Jones and Peyton Hillis and myself, it was just, hey, we're going to turn around, we're going to hand it off, and we're going to have success. That was a fun game to be a part of. We lost it, very unfortunate, but as far as memorable moments that I remember watching those 3 running backs being on the sideline and being like, man, those are some dudes. If they had a different situation maybe at quarterback, and I'm not hating on Casey Dick, but if they had maybe an offense that just helped them out a little bit too, just something a little bit better at that position, then we're talking about probably a different Arkansas team. Although the year before they went to the SEC championship game. They weren't chopped liver by any means, but those 3 running backs together, that should be illegal having that much talent.
McFadden could have won the Heisman that year. Could have won it in 06. I thought he had a better case in 06, and we dug into that a while ago with debates down south, and McFadden versus Troy Smith, this weird, like, a sophomore can't win the Heisman thing. But now it's almost like a running back can't win the Heisman, because since 2010, we've had as many running backs as receivers win the Heisman Trophy. Derrick Henry, 2015. Since then, Bryce Love is the only running back to even make it to New York. That was back in 2017. We've seen more defensive linemen make the trip to New York than running backs during that stretch from 2016 to 2022. We're now both voters. Do we need to lead some sort of, I hate to call it a rebellion, but some sort of movement to get running backs back into the Heisman Trophy conversation?
Gosh, I hate it. I hate it so much. I hate that it's being devalued, not only at the college level, but obviously the professional level as well. I mean, you talk about McFadden in 06. I mean, I remember him pulling away from a guy that I'd never seen be pulled away from in LaRon Landry. I mean, he was just doing things that were ridiculous. And like, if a guy like that can't go win a Heisman Trophy, I remember thinking that at the time. And they've had running backs since then, but I'm like, if that's not the best player in the country, then I just don't know the game that I love. I just don't know it like I thought that I knew it. But then, like, now we get farther down the road, and it's just like they're just not getting the love. It doesn't matter who you look at, right? I mean, look at the teams in the national championship game. It's like, yeah, we didn't really talk about those running backs. We talked about Max Duggan and Stetson Bennett. And I get it. The quarterback's the top billing. It's on the marquee. I get that. But just around the country, like, you don't hear people talk about running backs. I mean, Bijan Robinson was really the only one that probably got the love a year ago. And, you know, if it's 20 years ago, he was probably the guy we talked about more than anybody. But year after year, they just get devalued. And I'm sitting here and I'm looking, like, who would Ole Miss be without Judkins? Who would Arkansas be without Rocket Sanders? Who would, you know, Kendall Milton's going to be a stud at Georgia this year. Like, who would they be without that guy? Just look at, you know, a guy that we don't talk about enough, like in Josh Williams for LSU. You go back and you watch the Alabama game. There's like 7 plays where if he doesn't make them, LSU doesn't win. Like, where would these teams be without that running back? And, you know, obviously I'm biased towards the position, but it's just like, he's on the field. He's doing the things that he's always done, but for whatever reason, we just assume anybody can do those things. Like, Judkins going to run in for 1,567 yards in the SEC, and we're like, oh, it's fine. We'll get another guy in 2 years. He'll do the same thing. It's like, you sure about that? Like, are you really sure that that's not valued the way it's supposed to be? So I'm bitter. I get it.
Like, Judkins had the most rushing yards for a true freshman in the SEC, like second all time, next to just Herschel, right? Like, we talk about these guys in the preseason, and then for whatever reason, it feels like none of them can ever live up to expectations. And it's strange, because you have studs at the position coming into this year with Corum and Judkins, and obviously Rocket is someone that's going to be a household name, or at least he should be. But you kind of look at it and you're like, all right, so what's the path? Do you have to be something that we've never seen before? Because I think Derrick Henry and Christian McCaffrey, you can argue that was sort of apex mountain for running backs in 2015. Yeah. And they are tough to come up with comps for. And any comp to them just feels sort of lazy. So I'm just thinking to myself, like, what is it going to take for a running back to truly break through? Because Blake Corum ain't win the Heisman. Okay, you can clip this if you want. If you like, Blake Corum ain't showing us anything that we haven't already seen. And even Judkins, who was ridiculously good as a true freshman, like, no, I don't think he's going to win the Heisman. Like, what would that take to break through and give us something that we haven't seen before?
I don't know that it can be done. Not with the way that offenses are ran right now. I truly don't. Like, I don't know, because you don't have those offenses like a Leonard Fournette when he was at LSU. Like, he was in the conversation because you knew, hell or high water, he was getting the football, and he was going to get it 25, 30 times a game. They're going to run, toss, dive, and it was going to be the Lenny show. I don't know that we're going to get that. Right now, everything changes, and sometimes it comes back in vogue. But even saying that, like, I don't believe it, really, because I'm like, well, Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, they're going to run some pro-style offense. I mean, Blake Corum's going to get a ton of carries, but I just don't know that it's going to be enough. It is just a position that is going to be thought of as, we'll get a guy. You don't have a guy, we'll get a guy. Oh, you don't have, it's fine, we'll get a guy. And it's thought that way in the NFL too now, which is just mind-boggling to me. It's like, oh, we'll get a guy in the 4th round. And it's just a position that, you know, for whatever reason, man, it's not valued, and you almost think that anybody can do it. So I don't know, Connor, that we're going to be in a position anywhere close that we're going to see a running back even be in the conversation. Like, if you ask me which one has the best opportunity, it's probably Blake Corum. But even Blake Corum, splits carries with Edwards. So that's a portion of it as well. Like all these backs, they've got a guy that they split time with, right? And like that's what made what Clyde Edwards-Helaire did in 2019 kind of different is he played 92% of the snaps that year. It led the Power Five without question. I think it was second in the country because you're just not going to get that anymore. You're not going to get a true like bell cow. Because I tell people all the time, like bell cow is a different conversation than RB1. You can be RB1, but you might have 2, 3, 4, and 5 that also play. Like a true bell cow means you're playing over 90% of the snaps. You're not coming out on third down. You're going to be the best rusher and pass protector, the best catcher. You're going to be all of that. And that's what Clyde was for that team. And so he didn't come out. Like those guys, it was a stat that I kept pulling up time and time again that year because nobody else was doing it. And I don't know that anybody like on our list, like of our list of running backs, top running backs in the SEC, like even as much as I think Kendall Milton could be an absolute, if Kendall Milton had 250 carries, I think we're talking about numbers that 1,700 yards. I think he's that kind of a guy. I mean, last year he had almost 600 yards on 85 carries. You know what I'm saying? But I just don't think that like Georgia's going to have 3 guys. Like I couldn't even name them. Like give me 3 or 4 guys and they're going to play 3 or 4 running backs. And so like, I just don't even think you have the opportunity to be that guy anymore.
Will Shipley's the only one that came to mind as an interesting one because he gets to play in the new offense and maybe that can look different. He has truly emerged and Clemson fans have been banging the drum for him to get more carries. And if all of a sudden he sees that crazy spike, and I hate to do the lazy comp because he's not Christian McCaffrey, but like in today's day and age, if you're going to be a running back to win the award, you need that high volume, whether it's a ridiculous amount of carries like Derrick Henry or getting involved in the passing game. But the counterpoint is, you know what? Maybe teams just look around and they say, hey, you could be a national championship team with a guy who was the last scholarship offered in his class, just a guy wearing Hollister from Shreveport.
That's right.
And he ends up being this guy who's really important for a national championship winning team. And so they just plug him in there and you're going to be good to go.
Yeah, I mean, look, even my year, even when I fooled them all and became the starting running back, we still like Charles Scott was going to get carries. Keelan Williams was going to get carries. Richard Murphy was going to get carries. Trenton Holiday was going to get carries. And so like we were going to spread the wealth. We were all different running backs and why not? So I get it. But I don't know that we'll see a guy go out there and truly get, that has a realistic chance, I should say, of actually winning the trophy or even really being invited to New York. Now Will Shipley's a great one because we saw what Riley did. Bryles coming down from Arkansas, which is a big get, by the way, for TCU. But we saw what Riley did with Kendre Miller last year, right? I mean, that's a running back that I felt like was very undervalued. And so that's a good, by you for Will Shipley. He's on the all meathead team, by the way, and that's a term of endearment coming from me. Like we put it out there, he's on the all meathead team. That guy is going north and south, and don't let his size fool you. So, but maybe, right? It's like all these names, like, maybe. Like they could do it if they were asked to. I just don't know that they're going to be asked to do it anymore.
Does Will Shipley need to shave his goatee into a soul patch and be even more gritty a la a young Jacob Hester?
Look, if you go straight soul patch, I'm going to respect the hell out of you. Now, if you go like the Doc Holliday, you're going to win the Heisman. If you go mustache soul patch combination, or which it's hot with LSU baseball right now as we sit here and we're watching Omaha. I just feel like if you can pull that off, that's a combination that means I mean business from the get-go.
Last one for you. Over under 3 of your kids will stay home and go to LSU.
Ooh, that is a great question. Daughter will probably go to LSU. I'd say 3. I'd say 3.
Daughter will probably go to LSU.
I'd say 3. Okay, so here's the situation. I'm a little nervous. Okay, so they go to the lab school on LSU's campus. They go to school at LSU. Their email address for their, within the system for, all their work and stuff that gets sent to it is at lsu.edu. All right. So, they go to LSU now. I'm a little nervous. Are they going to want to go somewhere else? Are they going to want to leave? Which, I'm nervous because I want to spend the time with them. If they get a scholarship somewhere else and they want to go play football somewhere else, there's, only a handful of schools, Florida, that they can't go to. Okay. Otherwise, I'm going to go support them. I'm going to go be a good dad, but hopefully they do stay home. Hopefully they all choose to wear the purple and gold in one way or the other. It can be as a student or a player. I don't really care. Just as long as you're doing something productive. But I think I'm going to have to go under. I'm a little nervous that they're going to want to leave, maybe go somewhere far away, considering they've always been on LSU's campus. And look, me and Doring have this conversation all the time because Doring went to PK Young, right, which is the same thing. It's a lab school that's on the campus of Florida. His daughter went there. His son did not, right? So he's 1 for 2. He's hitting 50%. So if I can get 3 of the 5, it's under the number that you set, but I'll still feel pretty good about it.
I think our daughters in the class of 2041 will be elite long snappers. I'm going to pencil that in right now. I'm just going to bookmark that. There's a future in it.
I think everyone needs to take a look at that. I mean that, okay? They can go play professional football for like 15 years. Our deep snapper in San Diego, Dave Ben, was a stud. He played like almost 20 years in the NFL. There was one time he dated Pam Anderson. Okay. The guy was living life to the fullest, living in San Diego, still lives in San Diego, still looks great, by the way. And he just, made 15, 16, 17, however many years it was, paycheck in the NFL just to snap the ball. Now, there's no room for error. You got to be perfect, but they got these snapping camps, Connor. We need to look into it. Okay. We need to sign them up right now.
Let's do it. We'll make it happen. Absolutely. You're the best, man. Best of luck with the baby girl. Looking forward to sharing some notes with you next month in Nashville.
All right, brother. Talk to you soon.
So, yes, I am officially a dad. Very fitting that my last day of paternity leave, 3 weeks of paternity leave, was Father's Day. It was lovely. It was very lovely. Your boy cut the grass, did some dad things, as one does.
You wearing your shirts? Are we still in the wait-and-see mode on the shirts?
I can't wear cotton cutting the grass. Can't do it. Can't do it. We're going to be good. Will hooked me up. So for those who don't know, Will hooked me up with like 3 perfect dad shirts that I'm just going to get to wear at any given moment. Claire's Father's Day present to me was actually like a dad hat that just says dad on the front of it. Very nice of her. She gave me a nice card as well. Her penmanship is second to none. But it was a lovely day. It's been pretty crazy these last few weeks. I'll be honest with you, my voice might sound a little bit hoarse because sleep for a new parent, pretty hard to come by. But thank you to everybody who sent well wishes, felt so much love throughout this entire process. And mama and baby, they're doing really well. Claire Elizabeth O'Gara, for those who didn't see my posts on social media, yes, CEO. That was always going to be her initials. That was by design. Yeah. 8 pounds, 11 ounces. She's actually coming in like 9'7". I said, I was talking about that with Hester. The fact that she's like already above her weight, at the pediatrician appointment and everything like that, doing really healthy and doing well.
Thunder, do they have a chunk chart for babies? Do they have like a Lord, she coming up?
Man, we knew she was going to be big, like based on like how she was measuring kind of at like the 34-week mark. But so it was weird the way that it all kind of went down because we had induction scheduled for a day after her due date. And so we were, that whole day, that like Monday the 29th, we were like planning on going in all day. It was kind of like a weird day. We're trying to do stuff around the house a little bit, trying to distract ourselves because we had 9 p.m. was when we were scheduled to go into the hospital that night. And so like as we like get to the hospital, get into the room and everything, like Laura goes to the bathroom. She's like, my water just broke, which bizarre. I mean, very bizarre to have that happen like right before induction is scheduled. Then process was incredible. Lauren is, I didn't think I could have any more respect for her, and she was a superhero and what she went through. It was just incredible to see. And there have been 2 moments in my life in which I've realized everything has now changed. The first was when Lauren moved from Indiana out to Nebraska, and she and her dad drove like 14 hours in a U-Haul, and they got to their apartment, Lauren's apartment in Nebraska, where I was already living. And this realization that this incredibly talented, woman who has everything figured out just went across the country and is essentially betting on me and my career, and like seeing her dad and how exhausted they were. I had this moment that day, 9 years ago, in which I realized like, oh my God, all right,
I have fooled these people into thinking I'm this person. Now I must be him.
Right. And then like when baby comes out and you're sitting there and you're just like, everything has changed. Everything. And despite the fact that there have definitely been some tough moments and things to figure out. It's been incredibly rewarding, and grateful to go through this and to go through this with people who have been super supportive, and employers who have, and had to have an employer who has been totally on my side throughout this paternity leave process, as difficult as it was to kind of be away. But being a dad is super cool. It's super cool, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm not going to be one of those people that posts constantly about, like, on social media. I think I've said this on air before about how we're not really going to be trying to show her face, at least not in these early stages, just because there's a lot of weirdos on social media. But I've pretty much just said, whenever there's an adorable picture of her, I'm just gonna we'll just send it to our moms. They're the people who want to see it anyways, or I'll send it to Will or something like that. But it's been really cool. It's been really cool. It's difficult to be back at work now with Lauren still on maternity leave, and working from home. We're still kind of figuring out what all that looks like, but we're hanging in there. We're hanging in there about as much as possible. She sleeps through the night pretty well, and let's just say I have very much mapped out all the potential career opportunities for her, given her advanced size for her age, and yeah, mom and dad are happy. That's all we can ask for.
Yeah, man. So many thoughts on that. First off, I love the amount of preparation. I love how that carried throughout the Nick Saban move of no one's going to learn the name until the day. Like, keeping the quarterback depth chart secret, keeping it under wraps. Love that. And then second, dude, I don't even think I told you this. So Connor sent me a video of Rudy, his cat, his little chunky cat, who's behind him right now, meeting their baby. And I was at the spelling bee. So this timing was so wild because I would have had to take off time anyway. So I was at the spelling bee. Our team crushed it. We did a great job, and everything. I'm sitting there at like a breakfast or whatever, and I see it. And I just start crying. And I was like, this is the sweetest thing I've ever. And guys, I don't care about babies. I'm an only child. Yep. I've always joked about just get a puppy if you want a baby. I've never understood children. It's never been my thing. He sends me this video of Rudy walking up to this little car seat that she's in and being like, meow. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so cute. I show it to my coworker and she's like, oh my God. And they're like, are you guys okay? And I never cry. I guess I don't care about dang near anyone's baby except for that one, because I just have been your co-host and your friend for so long. And I was like, this is going it's a fairy tale so far. So I'm really happy for you, bro. I'm so fired up. I'm so fired up that you got to maybe not rest is not the good word, but at least not worry about weirdos and scheduling and Twitter for 3 weeks. Welcome back to it though. Welcome back to the Bird app.
Oh yeah, it's been great. Come back to the Bird app to see that we're talking about 10-year-old kids playing football and what their dads are doing for them. Yep. That'll be the last mention of that on this podcast. But yeah, man, it is. I thought there were going to be a lot of moments in which I was super eager to get back to work, and I was going to be chomping at the bit. And I'm like, oh, she's taking a 2-hour nap. I'm bored. Blah blah blah. That has not been the case. It is truly an all hands on deck type situation, because that time in which she's sleeping, we're doing everything we possibly can around the house, or, we got to get her signed up for healthcare. There's just a million things that you can possibly be doing. And so I have appreciated this time so much. And I'm glad I did not do the thing where I was kind of still trying to work through it. And
right.
You know what? I work from home. I could fire off a couple columns here and there. It's no. We're gonna do this right. We're gonna be all in, and that's what I've been. And still got a lot to learn, but I'd say I'm at least a B- diaper changer. I'm getting my 10,000 hours in that already. It is. I did not understand how many diapers a newborn goes through, and I kid you not, hundreds already. Hundreds and hundreds in these first 3 weeks here, and man, I guess that's a good problem, because it means she's eaten and their life is good. So I won't complain about that. But yeah, I mean it's definitely been draining. Any future episodes in which you hear baby crying in the background, just have a little patience with us. Life is definitely changed. It's changed for the better. It fully has. All those cliche things that people tell you about how you wonder what life was like before that. I wonder what my life looked like before this. It's hard to even picture what was I doing with my time before this child came along. But
a lot of opinions in the public supermarket. So I feel like we had lots of time to fill with it.
I know, right? Yeah. We're like taking her to like a couple of places and seeing kind of how she does in the car and all that. She's been great in the car. We like took her to the airport to just to drop off Lauren's mom, who was here for a few days. I'll get to more on that in a second. But man, she's been mostly things have been really good, and the fact that she's healthy has made our lives a lot easier, and a lot of little moments that are so rewarding. She doesn't smile with purpose yet. She smiles out of randomness. She doesn't smile as like a reaction of, oh, you tickled her stomach. She is more or less a potato at this stage, and she doesn't have real emotions, but it's still like you're looking down at her and you still have a couple of these little like glimmers where she'll just flash you a look, and you'll think to yourself, man, my daughter's smiling at me. And then you'll very quickly realize, no, she just pooped, and she's pooped. We're good. And you just roll with it. And we've just been rolling with it. That's what we've been doing for the past few weeks. But it's been good.
I'm sure you're trying to give her smiling with purpose lessons. Like, look, smile when happy. Tickle, smile. I'm trying
to like, I told you about this before, tummy time. That's a big thing with newborns. One of the things that we try and do with her is we'll try and have her track certain things. So you can only see like black and white and then like the color red at that early stage for the first like couple months, I think it is. And so we have like these little booklets where she can track colors, and you kind of like put her on her back at first and kind of see how she's tracking this and how she's looking up at objects. Does she actually follow something as you like bring it across her face? These little things that like I've never had to do stuff like this before, but I kind of like look forward to it throughout the day. And yeah, man, it is truly wild, and the lack of sleep has been the biggest adjustment for sure. But all things considered, we're good. We're good. We're hanging in there. Life's good.
Yeah, man. No, that's good to hear. It's one of those things where it's like, I wasn't like actively worried about you, but in the back of my mind, I was like, thinking about you, hoping you were doing good. Your updating was literally perfect. Like, you were like, we're good. Everything's fine. Here's a situation. Cat video. I was like, great. Perfect. This is exactly what I want to communicate via like tweet and like, okay. Cause like, obviously, you always just hope for the best, but you guys, it seems like I hate to say, blessed or lucky or whatever you believe in, but it was great to, see all those updates and everything. So I'm just fired up for you, man. And the community, I put your picture in the Facebook community. If you guys haven't seen that, it's adorable. But of course, I was a weirdo and like text you, was like, hey, can I grab your picture off of your Instagram and put it in the story? I think people need to see this. I was like, I don't want to just do it. See, that was the thing. If I did it, I would have been a weirdo without asking. But at least I asked. So
no, you're good. You're good. Yeah, she's already had 2 photo shoots, which is kind of crazy,
yeah, bro.
Yeah, because you do like the hospital photos, which I think they do a really good job with those. And that was what the original that first picture that you posted in Saturday Down South Podcast Facebook group. And then we had a photographer come to the house and like do these newborn shoots and stuff like that. And she was awesome during it. I mean, very minimal crying, and was so well behaved, which we're like, man, okay, she's rising to the occasion. Does she have the clutch gene? Yes.
Some are saying.
Yes, for sure. No doubt about it. I've got that kind of leads me into, I have a last of the week this week, and it is my mother-in-law, Julie Saddam. Lauren's parents are machines. They are not human. Like Brock Bowers, they may or may not be human. Unconfirmed at this point.
Okay.
She comes down to Orlando. She came down last Wednesday, stayed until Sunday. Wanted to meet her granddaughter, help us out, do whatever she can, blah, blah, blah. We're kind of like, all right, what are we going to have her do? Is she going to do dishes? Maybe she'll meal prep a couple of things. We'll kind of figure out, occasionally hold the baby, whatever. Here is all that this woman did, who was on the other side of 60, might I add. Here is all that she did while she was here. Pulled out all the weeds in the front and backyard of our house. She dug up our old mulch, helped replant the 31 bags of mulch that it took to redo our front and backyard. She cleaned 3 different trips to Lowe's on Saturday afternoon. She cleaned off the algae from our fence to make it look brand new. She repotted a bunch of plants that needed it, pulled a bunch of the weeds from those specific plants. We just haven't found those specific spots for yet. Trimmed a bunch of plants that needed it, meal prepped 2 separate meals for us, like meals to have over the course of a week, played with Claire, changed diapers, allowed us to be able to take naps on several occasions. Just an absolute machine. And I mentioned last year, right around this time, about how I didn't think it was possible for anyone to ever top what my father-in-law did during his 3 days here and all the work they did for our backyard and stuff like that.
With the bats.
Yeah. Build us a bad house. That's right. Good memory. Very good memory. I was like, there's no way anybody can ever do all the things that he did. She went up to him. Everything that she did, for in a given day, we would be trying to sleep in until close to 9, just because when your sleep is so interrupted over the course of the evening. And we'd get up at 9 in the morning to make coffee, stuff like that. And she's like, yeah, I've been outside for 2.5 hours pulling weed. She's head to toe covered in sweat and dirt and stuff like that. And she's like, yeah, I got another couple hours. Well, I'll have everything finished by 11 or so, and would just hammer away at every project that we needed to be able to do that we weren't going to have time. It was perfect, and did so without us having to ask her anything. Bought us a power washer, dropped dropped insane amounts of money at Lowe's and at Publix and getting us groceries. If there is an ideal mother-in-law visit then that one can have, that's it. That's creme de la creme of mother-in-law visits. It was fantastic. We feel the absence right now with her not being here. It couldn't have gone any better.
I think this is just from my casual observation, but I think that generation has hit another gear lately. It's kind of like LeBron, where he's always posted about hashtag year 20. It's if you were a productive person, you hit that age bracket. It's this extra yo, hey, don't talk about my age. I'm as spry as ever. You see some real stats being put up here that are the prime Lawrence Bob situation. So great to see. Yeah, it sounds like everybody pulled together. Sounds like the plan was executed, and yeah, an incredible last of the week.
Do you have anything coming up here that we need to be able to get out ahead of? I was thinking about that as I was coming back, and I'm planning out kind of how we're going to do pods moving forward. I believe we're going to have a big time guest coming on next week, so stay on the lookout for that. Somebody that we've had on once before, but is one of the biggest names in college football, in my opinion, that should be coming. If not next week, it'll be the week after that. But I gotta update my anniversaries and stuff like that. Now that we're hitting the leanest part of the schedule, you're gonna watch some college baseball a lot.
Yes, my lad of the week is going to be Paul Skeens. But I was just going to let you cook on that one because, buddy, that guy was 121 pitches in, throwing 101 miles an hour. I don't know if I've seen that from Max Scherzer. I don't know if I've seen that from peak Clayton Kershaw. So I'm fascinated by that human being and just a lad. But yeah, I think it's a great time for college baseball. It really is, and not just because LSU is there and destroying the Jello Shot Challenge, because there are a lot of really fun teams this year. Obviously, Tennessee's a fun team. Wake Forest, I'm horrified that LSU does not have Paul Skeens tonight against them, and it almost feels like a schedule loss, actually. But yeah, I think it's just Omaha's electric this year.
Omaha is such a fun place this time of year. For those who have been to the College World Series, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I never went to Rocco's, though, during my time there. Rocco's was, as far as I'm concerned, wasn't even really a thing. And
you're not a Jello Shot guy.
Yeah, you know what? I'm just not a Jello guy. I think that's the problem. But I didn't even think that was a thing. And I guess I was there 10 years ago, so that's probably a little bit dated. But yeah, LSU.
You got to go next year and just take one Jello shot for your alma mater, Indiana University, and then just have the little Indiana one at the bottom of the shot, just because they don't have a baseball team, right?
Whoa.
Was it Wisconsin that stopped their baseball team?
Wisconsin doesn't have a baseball team. How dare you forget about the great Kyle Schwarber?
Okay, I'm sorry. How could I confuse Indiana and Wisconsin? If someone else did that about the SEC, I'd be mad. So that was actually bad by me. But yes, no, that would be funny. But yeah, just a chill time of the year and great planning by you guys.
I'm going to get to Omaha, hopefully, in the course of the next couple of years and spend some time with my guy, Ben McDonald. That'll be coming up. Love me some Ben McDonald. He's the absolute man. If you have not, leave us a 5-star review, subscribe to this podcast, follow us on Twitter at the SDS Pod, at CJ O'Gara, at Go So Hard. Join the Facebook group and hear your name read on air with Figuring It Out or Golden Brass. Thanks, guys. Talk soon.